Pudge is currently in trouble because he keeps running. Every time I take the camera out, he's like a tornado, like a hurricane. And then by the time I turn on the camera, he's just breathing really heavy and just snorting. And then the people of YouTube come for me and think that he's just constantly can't breathe. You see that sound? You don't hear that during the day. It's just after he has been putting me right in the center of a pug tornado that it happens. Are we calm now? Have we calmed down? How about I take out the bat pillow, even though you always get so much fur on this thing, and you can sit down right here. Okay, sit down right here. Go ahead, sit down. Okay. Now you're okay. I know, we're touching. Okay. It's impossible. Pudge, if you can't get your breathing under control, I think you're gonna have to go hang out with your dad. Oh, I know. Pause on the intro. I'm going to have some cuddles with him and get him calm, and then I will continue this video and put him in the room with my husband. So he's in the room behind me, so you might hear him barking or tapping around. My posture is so bad. Anyway, I'm back, the headless YouTuber doing headless planty things, and today we are doing something a little bit different. I've never done this before on my channel, but I was planning out an April favorites, and then I realized that I didn't want to do that because I just didn't feel like it. So instead I thought, let's go back to the first favorites video I ever did on this channel, which was my June favorites, obviously posted June 2021, and just sort of give you an update on how those plants are doing and what they look like now. I'm going to backtrack, and I have 10 plants that I featured in June, and I only have 8 of them now. I'm just trying to think of how I'm going to edit this, so what I'm gonna do is just go down one by one. I'm gonna scooch as much as I can to this side so that I can insert clips next to me to show you what they look like in June, so that you're not having to, like, I mean, you can if you want, but you don't have to go back and watch my June favorites just to kind of be up to date in this video. Before I take the plants out though, I just wanted to thank Skillshare again for sponsoring today's video. If you are not new to this channel, you know that I have been taking Skillshare classes for the last few months. The first round of classes that I took was for Final Cut Pro. That is the program that I use to edit all of my YouTube videos, and on that front I've really been able to bring a lot more creativity into the videos than I ever have been, and there's still so much to learn, but editing in general has just become a lot funner of a process for me, just because now I am so much more comfortable with the program itself. So if you've been wanting to start a YouTube channel or just wanted to edit videos in general and were a little bit intimidated on the Final Cut Pro program like I was, I highly recommend taking some Final Cut Pro classes on Skillshare. They break it down really easily. If there's only a certain part of Final Cut Pro that you were wanting to learn, then you can go straight to that topic and just get the information you need. So that has been super helpful. And then the other classes I've been taking are photography classes, and this is more on the plant side. The only reason that I wanted to take these classes was obviously to take photos of my plants. If you follow me on Instagram, you know that my feed is normally pretty like bright, and I take a lot of things against a white background. There is a good amount of editing that goes into the photos, which is why I like to show the before and after, just because I want people to know what it actually looks like in real life, pre-filter and pre-editing. But I have just really loved seeing photos on Instagram of plants in people's gardens specifically, or rooms that are just filled with plants. Something about looking at those photos just makes me fall in love with plants like all over again. And I noticed that like a majority of these photos were taken against like a wall of plant or inside of a greenhouse that's filled with plants, and I don't have many spaces like that, like out here, that has bright light, and that's where I struggled. If I take these photos like in my greenhouse or in my exo, it's gonna look really weird and the lighting is gonna look artificial, but I was so wrong. And with a few classes, I was able to learn how to do it in probably a few days. There's still a lot that I feel like I need to work on, and I definitely want to try to learn how to take these photos not on my iPhone, but like on my actual DSLR. So that's gonna be the next thing for me, is learning how to use my DSLR. I know the basics, but I don't really know too much. So I want to be able to start photographing my plants with a higher quality camera so that I could potentially blow some of these photos up. But in regard to the actual photo editing, I've really been enjoying sort of learning how to edit my photos in a different way that I was always normally used to. I'm gonna throw up the highlight on my Instagram page where I show you kind of like a montage of some of the photos that I've been taking over the last like month or month and a half or something, or I think it's been even more than that now. I think it's been like 2 or 3 months. One thing that's really therapeutic for me is just kind of taking photos of my plants. And so on this Instagram highlight, you can just see some of the photos that I've taken both in my plant room, outside here, and it's just been really, really fun. Like, I look forward every day to being able to like photograph a new plant or try and capture a plant in a different light. And before we really get started, I'm just going to tell you guys a little bit more about Skillshare, and then we will get back into this video. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for anyone who loves learning and wants to explore their creativity and learn new skills. When I joined Skillshare, I had a pretty good idea of the kinds of skills I wanted to learn, but the great thing is that because there are so many premium classes being launched each week, there's always something new to discover, and generally it's just a really inspiring place to be if you've been wanting to make a career change or further a skill you already have, or even turn a hobby into a career. It's ad-free, so you don't have to worry about being interrupted, and the entire catalog is available in Spanish, French, Portuguese, and German subtitles. I'm so grateful that Skillshare has made video editing a more stress-free experience, since YouTube has become such a large part of my life and my everyday, and I actually look forward to editing now and can even tie in this new plant photography hobby into my videos, which is really great. One class that I really wanted to highlight was Plants at Home by Plant Queen. I'm sure a lot of us follow them on Instagram, and if you know me, you know how important my plants play into my space, and I highly recommend checking it out if you've been unsure how to tie in your plants or the abundance of them into your home. So if you've been curious about Skillshare and all the different classes they offer, the first 1,000 people to use the link in the description or using the code UNPLANTPARENTHOOD will get a 1-month free trial. We're just gonna get started, and I'm going to show them in the order that I showed them in June. I don't have a lot of recollection of what these plants looked like in June, the state that they were in, so I'm gonna be watching it on my phone here just to refresh my memory. I'll throw the clip up here, and then after we've done a little reminiscing, then I will bring out the plant. So first plant on the list is my Euphorbia globosa. I hope I'm saying that right. I think that when I featured this in my June favorite, I had just acquired it, and oh, it was so small. Yeah, and it was still in the original pot that Alice gave it to me in, so it definitely was not very long that I would have had it. It looks like 2 separate plants, but it's just one plant, and there's 2 separate growth points like shooting out of each way, and you can start to see sort of those little, I don't know what the growth pattern is of this plant, but it pushes out those little runner things and then little balls and leaves and stuff. I'm gonna see if I can find a more mature version of this plant and throw it up. When I first acquired this plant, I thought that it was just going to be one of those plants that just keep making balls, but yeah, it definitely did not turn out that way. So it was a tiny little thing, but it has definitely grown a lot since then. Here is what my Euphorbia globosa looks like now. You'll notice that one of the little arms that was coming out in the June favorites video is now gone, and that's because I gave a cutting to Alice. This is one of the original ones, and then there was like another one coming out that way. But I chopped it, and it has not stopped growing, and it's so funny. It's just kind of all swooped this way, and it's not like it's getting light like in that direction. It's getting light from all over. It's just on that shelf behind me right here. That's a newer shelf that I put in. Yeah, it's just continued to push out these like gangly finger looking things. And I've actually not even gotten one single new ball. And maybe that's because I don't understand the growth pattern of them or something. Or maybe like these are supposed to be like on the ground. I don't know. I really don't know. But I feel like just based on what this looks like, if I could just make an uneducated guess, my guess is that it's like looking for something that it normally would need or have in its natural habitat. And I thought maybe it was like looking for ground. And I just thought like maybe if it was sitting on like a longer pot of soil, that more like of these little balls would form. And it just wouldn't be sort of like running like this. But I don't know. I have no clue. I don't know enough about this plant to be able to give any insight into why it's growing like this. But I do have an affinity for strange looking plants. And when she showed this plant to me when she was traveling and asked if I wanted to buy it, of course I said yes, because it just looked like such a weirdo. I just didn't know it was gonna be this much of a weirdo. But I love it. It makes me happy to see it, honestly. I had thought about chopping some of these arms off and propagating some, and I don't know, just kind of giving it a trim. But I almost want to see like how wild this thing can get if I just let it be. But it is in a very unfortunate situation right now. It is living in pond, essentially with no drainage, but it is one of the vessels. I'm spilling this everywhere. I'm gonna step on these later. Oh no, I can't find the other one. You know who will find the other one though is one of my toes. Oh, there. So what was I saying? Yeah, so I say it's an unfortunate situation just because it probably is really root bound in there. You saw that a root was coming out of it and there's just so much algae, but algae's not gonna kill your plants. This one's growing seemingly fine. I am glad that in this video I can show you that at least it's thriving and well and not dead, because I didn't know anything about this plant before owning this plant. I only owned a few Euphorbias, but I've actually found Euphorbias to be a very, very easy species to work with. They just don't really require that much. So really grateful for this one. And this one continues to be one of my favorite non-aeroid plants. The next one that we're gonna talk about is my variegated. Ow! I found another pond. I told you, my feet always find them. Yes, next one is my variegated soderoy. I'm gonna scoot over and show you what it looked like back in June. It was a 3-leaf plant. And the reason that it only had 3 leaves, if my memory serves me correctly, is that I had chopped it for someone, Aaron, I think. I think Aaron was the last person that I chopped this plant for. This was the top cutting, and I was kind of left with a really small plant in comparison to how it first started when I acquired it 2 years ago or something. And yeah, I had it on a regular sphagnum moss pole, still in passive hydro. It was a decent sized plant, but it was pretty small, just because historically I just kept chopping this plant back because I did want to share it with a lot of friends. I've never actually sold a single one of these cuttings because I was very concerned about the variegation, but I'm not gonna get into that. I think I addressed it in another video about how damaged DNA, trying to shrink internodes on the soderoy and blah, 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 blah. So yeah, anyway, I have never sold a cutting of this plant just because even though I was given information from a very, very reputable and trusted person in the plant community, I was still just like, well, I'm not gonna be held responsible if for whatever reason he's wrong, and then I've just been selling cuttings of plants with mosaic virus or something. But I have given many cuttings away to friends who were curious about it and wanted to grow it themselves. So Aaron has one, I think Jing has one, Alice has one, my friend Ren has one, my friend Hannah has one. They're just kind of everywhere. But here's what it looks like now. I have not chopped it since then, but I did only very recently get it onto this lazy pole. It was on just that sphagnum moss pole for a while, but it wasn't really attaching the way that I wanted it to. And you can kind of see that like the leaves have not changed size much since June. And I think that these could actually be the 3 leaves from June. This one doesn't shed many leaves. I can't even remember the last time that I had a leaf drop on this thing. When I lose leaves, it's because I've chopped it to propagate or give away or something. But like, I've never really seen like one of these leaves go fully yellow. So it's a very resilient plant. I feel like it can retain a lot of nutrients for a long time. Not seeing a ton of leaf size growth, but I am feeling really good about it being on a lazy pole now. You can kind of see some of these fuzzy roots coming in. And this one is a newer transplant. I'm not seeing any new roots down here, which is slightly concerning because I feel like by now, from when I repotted this thing, I should have seen some new roots, but I don't. But now I'm wondering, is that root rot or is that, I don't know. It's not showing any signs that it has root rot, but my spidey senses are tingling a little bit, and just based on what I know about this specimen specifically, I should see some roots in here, and I don't. So I'll have to remember when I repotted it, just so that I'm not preemptively kind of like disturbing it. But yeah, otherwise, other than that, it's doing really well. If you guys are wondering what this is, I let it dry out 1 week completely because it was just kind of a hectic week. I think it might have been the week that my husband's dad passed, and I wasn't really caring for plants. It's just a lot was going on. And so the vessel dried out completely, and then I just kind of like doused it in water. The next day, all of the abaxials were showing signs of guttation, and I'll see if I can plug in a photo next to me of what guttation looks like. And this one specifically had like a huge little bubble of water in the leaf, and it looked like a little tumor. So it was in there for like maybe 2 days, and then I finally got sick of looking at it, so I popped it, and then that happened. But otherwise, all of the other leaves are like pretty healthy. I've always had like a very good mix of this like sort of damaged DNA variegation, and then just kind of more leaves that are on the regular soderoy looking side. It kind of just goes back and forth. But the newest leaf that has come in does have, I would say, like almost the perfect mixture of like those random splashes of variegation and then the silver of the soderoy. But yeah, this one still continues to be a favorite. If you guys have been with me for the last few weeks, I would say, you'll know that I'm like hoarding soderoy, like my life depends on it. And yeah, this one is not going anywhere, and I vowed this year to not chop this plant. I'm gonna let this thing grow to its fullest potential and just see how large I can get the leaves. There is a new leaf coming in, and just based on the size of this emergent leaf as it is, it does look slightly larger than what it normally would. So I am thinking that maybe the lazy pole is working, and we're gonna finally see some leaf growth on this thing. Next one on the list is the Philodendron myoi. Oh, I remember now. This is when I still had one of the large original leaves on it still. There were 3 other leaves. Oh, and this was before I acquired the second myoi from Erin. So I don't actually know which, oh, I think that one's the original. Is it? Yeah, okay. I do know which one is the original one from June, but I do have another myoi now since then. Like I mentioned, still had the original leaf that was super big, very mature. It was in passive hydro. Yeah, had 4 leaves on it. So decent sized specimen, but this was one of my only remaining plants that I had solely growing in leca. And I feel like I haven't quite figured out the fertilizing, like the perfect fertilizing regimen, or even just the right fertilizer for plants solely in leca. The thing I like about using Pon is that there's slow release fertilizer when you buy it from Lechuza Pon, and I do mix perlite in it, and perlite can retain some nutrients, and it kind of acts as like a slow release fertilizer from what I've read before, because like the roots only take it from the perlite when it needs it or something like that. But I just have noticed that my plants in Pon just do so much better than my plants in leca. I have used leca Leca a lot before. And I think back then I didn't really have a frame of reference to compare it to. So I just felt like, oh, they're growing so well, they're not dying, the roots look super healthy. You know, you get those nice like udon noodle roots. But now that I'm growing a lot in pond, I'm just noticing the difference in growth between plants just in Leca and just in pond. My plants in pond definitely have more robust growth, quicker time to size up the leaves. Leaves push out a lot faster, and just in general, I feel like they're just really enjoying having a bit more nutrition in the substrate. A lot of people, even in passive hydro, will use the same fertilizer that you would use in hydroponics, but I've just never, I feel like I can't wrap my brain around it. I don't know why. It's one of those things that I've never just sat down and was like, I'm gonna understand this. It's just, it felt a little overwhelming for me. So maybe one day, but it's not really a priority for me right now to kind of like understand hydroponics more, not passive hydro, but just hydroponics. Anyway, this is what the plant looks like now. I did chop this for my mom, and it just, I don't know, after being chopped and just being in straight Leca for so long, it just didn't like me. But I did recently, literally last night, I moved it into leucotricha because I just couldn't bear to look at the plant anymore in Leca. Some of the roots had rotted, but a lot of it is because over the last few months, I've had a lot of difficulty trying to balance my time, and I seem to pay more attention to the plants in my plant room rather than the ones out here. I think sometimes I get really comfortable thinking that these ones are just so hardy, so resilient. They're all acclimated to room humidity and they just kind of figure it out. But I feel like I've had a little bit too much faith in them and a little bit of just like bad time management and a little bit of laziness. So I have let a lot of plants on the shelf kind of go through it, which is why I have downsized, but that's gonna be for another video. I was trying to not show too much in this video because I didn't want you to see exactly what it looked like, but it is sunny today and I just wanted to be out here. So my brain can't stay on track today. Okay. Get it together. So this is the myoi. You can see it is still it's a 3-leaf cutting now. This one is on the way out, and I did chop the top off for my mom, but a new growth point is coming in, and I just think that this is a plant that probably should have been living in either soil or leucotricha a long time ago, because even back in June, I think I did have it in pond, and then for whatever reason, I thought that just moving it to Leca was gonna be the right choice, but I don't always make the right choice, and clearly the plant suffered a lot since then. I thought that I had thrips on this thing for a long time because I was seeing signs that sort of looked thrippy, but then it ended up not being thrips. I didn't even have spider mites or anything. It was very confusing. This is a plant that I really thought was gonna be a super easy plant to care for, and it ended up being a little bit more difficult than I thought. And I have never, to my memory, have ever grown this inside of a greenhouse. When I bought this, all of the leaves were like 3 times this size. They were huge. There was no way I could fit it into any greenhouse, not even if I had a bigger tent. It had like a huge wingspan and there was just no way. So I had no choice but to grow it outside, and I only had it for maybe a couple months until it like eventually started declining. But yeah, this is a plant that I have struggled with a little bit, surprisingly, but you know, we're slowly figuring it out. And then I'll just for kicks, I'll show you the other myoi that I got from my friend Erin. I don't even remember how this came into my home, but I have it. And I think what happened is like she had another myoi that wasn't growing that great. And so she like chopped it, or she just gave it to me, and then that's what this is. But again, sort of the same thing with the yellowing, and this one was in the same pot as my other one, both in Leca, and they just didn't like it. So if pond doesn't work this time around, I think that I will probably chop off all the roots. I know that sounds dramatic and drastic, but I think what I'll do is chop off all the roots, start over, and just use straight soil. Obviously, once it's rooted, I'll probably try and root in moss and then move it to soil. And if that doesn't work, then we're gonna I'm just kidding, I would never. I talked about this a little bit in my Q&A about really trying to understand and observe your plants. This is what I'm talking about, is like allowing yourself to like go through it, lose leaves for the sake of study essentially. And I've played around with different, I can't say this. I've played around with different substrates. Was that so hard? I've played around with different substrates with this one, and I feel like I still have not come across the one that I love, but you know, we're just on this path together, and I'm not gonna give up on this because myois are actually one of my favorite plants ever. I would say the myoi, the Thelmatophyllum Xanadu, and then the poidioides. Poidioids? Not that I own one, but those are some of my favorites, and they all kind of have sort of the same leaf blade look. I don't know what I'm talking about. But anywho, these are the myois. A little bit on the struggle, but we're gonna get it sorted. Moving right along. This one, I do not need to refresh my memory, but I will throw in the clip for you. My Pilea globosa was a plant that I purchased from, I think that my friends and I got it from Crystal Star Nursery. It's a shop out on the East Coast in Canada. They do ship Canada-wide though, and it was like the cutest little thing. But honestly, I should have known to not get it because it's just so delicate and dainty looking, and it's just like, it's got these tiny, tiny little fairy balls, and with these clunky hands and just a clunky whole body in general. It's like, how did I think this was gonna be a good idea? I don't know. But anyway, I got it, and Jing has one too, and it just blew up. It got so big, whereas mine was kind of just like, just surviving. I was gonna say throw up, I'm gonna sneeze. Oh, that one snuck up on me. So hers was growing really well. I do think she had it growing in passive hydro in Leucotricha. I had mine in soil, and it just, I don't know. I think I probably mistreated it a little bit. Like, I feel like the soil mix is a little bit too chunky for Pilea. Basically, when I went to California, my friend Nick was taking care of my plants and it died. Not to his fault. Again, it was a very, very chunky mix, and it dried out so fast. It had drainage holes. So by the time I got home, it was just like this sad looking thing, and I thought maybe just like water, giving it a really, really, really heavy water would bring it back to life, but nothing could save the poor little thing. But I think that in maybe one of my times where I was caring for this plant, a little tiny piece must have dropped. I forgot which Hoya it was growing out of, but I just started randomly seeing this little thing poke out of the pond, and I was like, huh. But it ended up turning into the Pilea, and this was, am I saying that right? Pilea? I don't know, I say Pilea. Yeah, I started growing out of it, and I was like, oh my gosh, I think that is part of my old plant. And it's almost like it knew that it was gonna die, and I was like, I'm gonna save myself. So this is what is left of it, and you honestly can't even really see it. It's so tiny, but fierce and strong and brave and confident and beautiful. I don't even really know how long this thing will stay alive. Can't see it. If I go like that, it just looks like it's the pond, so I have to hold it like this. But yeah, it's just a wee little thing, and even in potting it into this thing, like 4 of the balls fell off. This is like one of those plants where I feel like I just can't touch it. Like, don't even look at it, don't even breathe on it, just let it be. And I'm even really nervous to have it outside of my cabinet, because it's not like it was super finicky when I had like the mother plant, but I will say it was a little bit more high maintenance than I had anticipated, especially with these tiny little ball things being so just delicate. Like literally, if I just like blow the hardest I can blow, I think all of these will fly off. So anyway, this is what's left of it. I think if this dies, I'm kind of done. It's not a plant that I ended up really loving the way I thought I was gonna love. I think because of how delicate it was. I'm just like the type of person that buys plants because I want to touch the leaves, I want to play with it, I want to hold it, and I just can't do that with that plant. Next one I do have to refresh my memory on. This is the plant that I've been calling the Tofu and ethereum on this channel, and that is because my friend Jing acclimatized it in a tofu container. So because it's a hybrid, we just call it the Tofu and ethereum, because what else would we call it? I'm slouching. Ugh, wow, it was so healthy back then. Look at her. I can't remember if this was before or after I had chopped it for my friend JR for his birthday. In June, it was in passive hydro. It was in a mix of leucotricha and leca, and it was in one of those little plastic pots that I use often. And at the time that I filmed this video, it had a brand new leaf forming, and I wonder if I still have that leaf on here. Oh yeah, okay, so I still have the leaf from June on it. Let me just show it to you now. Here is Miss Tofu and ethereum. She has most definitely seen better days. I really kind of struggled with this plant a little bit, and I moved it into my Millsville cabinet in the plant room, and it did not at all enjoy those 24-watt Monios lights. The Monios lights are the ones that I have in my Redster right now, and my Hoyas and my cacti love it. Do not recommend it for ethereums. It is just way too harsh. It completely bleached. This was the leaf that was brand new in the June favorites. So, I mean, honestly, I never would have even realized that this leaf had been on here since June. So, slightly surprised, but there have been a few new leaves after that. This one is actually the oldest leaf on the plant, and this one was in the June favorites as well. So both of those are the original leaves from June favorites, and then these three are newer. So you can kind of see, like, it should be a much darker color, but you can see some like bleaching up here. And yeah, I just had it in there for way too long. And then this one, which one is the newest one? Okay, so this one was like the one that came out, I think, last month. When I saw this leaf come out sort of wonky, like, it didn't have that much trouble coming out of the caterpillar, but when it was starting to emerge, I didn't realize how fast it would grow, and it was a little bit cramped in the Mills bow. So this side was like growing against something, and it just kind of got deformed, and that's why we have lopsided ears. But you can see the color difference between this one that was grown under much lower light compared to something like this. And then, because I'm the worst, I switched up the lighting again. I added another 10-watt bar into the Mills bow, and this one is a little bit lighter than this one back here. Still a lot darker than like something like this that got bleached, but yeah, you can see a little bit of bleaching. I feel like it's not really picking it up on the camera, but you can kind of see some on the edges. So now I just have, well, I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you the conditions I have it now because it's a secret, but you will find out if you stay subscribed to this channel. This is a plant that I bought from Jing because I thought it was a Forgetii hybrid because of the lack of sinus. But no, it's wide open now. Tricked me. But this sinus right here does give me very pappy vibes, so probably is some kind of like mag pappy something. So I did repot this one not too long ago. It is in passive hydro, and holy smokes, look at these new roots on them. These huge fuzzy udon noodles. I think it just really appreciated being in clean substrate, a larger substrate. Back in June, I don't believe I was using mycorrhizal inoculants yet, and a lot of people say that mycorrhizae does nothing in passive hydro, but honestly I add it anyway, and I just feel like in terms of the root systems of my plants, they have just been so drastically different than anything I've had before. Like these roots down here, they're like super thin, but it was already a mature specimen compared to some of the newer roots that have come in that are just massive. So I'm not a scientist, you guys. I just do whatever I feel like is working for me, and I do think that the addition of mycorrhizal inoculants has played a big part in this plant still being alive despite being neglected and kind of abused. I feel like I was talking about this for 20 minutes. let's move on. I lied. I actually only have 7 of the 10 plants. Another plant that I featured in my June favorite was my Zamiya furfuracea, aka the cardboard plant, and I loved that plant very, very much. It was one of my babies and it is still alive, but if you watched my video from when my parents came to visit, my mom just got free reign to take whatever she wanted from my collection, and that woman got the cardboard plant. No regrets. Obviously, it looks much more beautiful in her home than it ever did in my apartment, so at least I get to see it still, and I know it makes her really happy, so I was more than happy to give that to her. Honestly, my mom could take any plant that she wanted from me, and of course it would hurt, but I love my mom more than my plants. So guys, I don't know if I'm mentally prepared to talk about this right now. This is something that has ignited the fire in my loins in the last several weeks, and that is my Philodendron glorious. So let's go back in time and see what it looked like back then. Oh, it was still a pretty good size. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It looked like there were 5 leaves on it, and they were about the same size that they were before this newest leaf came in. Very, very beautiful. This was before it got burned by the grow lights really bad, and obviously I can show you what that looks like. It was in soil and on a regular moss pole. I had it air layered down at the bottom with saran wrap. I have since taken it off of that tragic looking situation and got it onto something a little bit more fit for a queen. Let's start at the bottom. So this is what I was talking about in terms of being burned by the grow lights. This plant, if you've never owned one before, and maybe not all specimens are like this, but definitely this one is so sensitive to light. It got burned by a 10-watt grow light. Like what? That's how? I don't understand. You can see like the texture of that leaf come through, like all those super, super fine veins, maybe? Am I moving it around too much? And then just sort of this like yellow bleaching color. Besides cosmetic things, which don't really bother me that much anymore as long as my plant is healthy. This plant has pushed out the biggest leaf that I've ever seen on this plant so far. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to get steady here. So this is the newest leaf, and obviously I did a whole video on this, getting it onto this pole. It is the Lazy Pole Part 2 video if you haven't seen it yet. And yeah, I'm just so pleased with how big it is, because I think I remember saying in the video that I was maybe a little bit disappointed that like the leaves hadn't sized up and they all kind of were the same size. But it wasn't until this leaf here that I was like, are we doing something? Is something happening? Because this one was a lot bigger. I think I featured it in another favorites video, maybe my December favorites, and this one was brand new, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's so big. And then here we are with this one. So it doesn't have the super mature like lobes that a big Philodendron glorious would have, but I mean, the leaf size is a lot bigger. I think I will actually pee myself the day that I get the real lobes. I'll throw a photo up in the corner there of what I'm talking about. That is like one of my favorite things about the Philodendron glorious are the lobes and the sinus, and I'm just so happy that this thing is growing so well for me. I do have it obviously on a lazy pole, and there are some nice fuzzy roots coming in right there. And I just love that with these poles you can fertilize it, and the fertilizer will actually stay in there and be absorbed by the roots. So you can see in the front there that the fasteners are doing its job. And honestly, when I first thought of the idea to do a clear strap, honestly, my first thought was I wish that the Velcro was clear, and we were like trying to look for clear Velcro. It's just like not a thing. If you do find clear Velcro, it's more of that like milky clear color, so it's not actually clear. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll just use more of this plastic. And so yeah, I just used the plastic to cover it, and then I just realized not only does it look better, but traps in so much humidity, and not only are those aerial roots in the back getting hydrated and able to push out roots, but now the front ones have that sort of ability too. So my only issue was that my brain doesn't really work like an engineer. I have lots of ideas, just the execution is sometimes a little bit crap. So luckily my friend Jing, and with the help of the Hive Mind on YouTube, we were able to figure out a strap that worked. Yeah, that was a really fun group project. Anyway, that is my Glorious. Pride and Joy, that one is living in my Mars Hydro tent right now, and I am truly considering going through the headache of getting a larger tent. Not larger, but taller, just for this plant, believe it or not. If that's not love, then love doesn't exist. I'm just gonna do this one now since I don't have it, but the last plant that I showed in my June favorites was my Syningia leucotricha, which is that fuzzy plant that looks like a teddy bear, feels like a dog's ear, and I don't have that anymore because my mother took it. I do have another one that Alice got for me, but it's really small. It doesn't look anything like my other one. I'll show it to you in another video, but not this time. 2 plants left. We can do this. I say that because I am dreadfully sleepy. So where's my YouTube app? Oh, it closed. Come on. These dang ads. Saying that to my own ads. But I finally have this one on the shh. I don't think you guys realize how sick I am of hearing my own voice after just hours and hours of filming and editing. The sound of my voice just makes my ears bleed. Okay. Oh, it was so small. Oh my gosh. When I first got this plant, I think maybe in June I would have had it like maybe a month tops or something, if that, maybe a few weeks. But it was a 4-leaf plant. It was still very, very tiny, pretty much nursery size, like what would fit in a 4-inch pot. Very healthy. It was growing in soil in a pot with drainage. There is the Spark Notes version. Just a forewarning, I have been dealing, if you follow me on Instagram, you already know this, but I have been dealing with a bad freaking infestation of spider mites. Don't know where the hell they came from, but they have encroached into the plant room, and pretty much every single one of my exos and my tent had spider mites pretty bad. And again, I am not scared of spider mites. It's just they're annoying and I find them very pesky, and systemic doesn't work for them, which makes it a little bit more annoying. This plant was hit pretty badly with spider mites, and I did not want to remove it for this video. I wanted to be able to show you what the spider mites look like. And this is after like 3 rounds of treatment, which are thorough scrub downs and the use of like a pesticide spray. The only thing I haven't done is change the substrate, and I know I need to do that. So that's gonna be on my list of to-dos this weekend. Here is my scalrum now. I need to move the camera back. It is definitely much larger than it was back in June. The original leaves were probably half of this size, and that's not even the largest. I think this one is the largest leaf it's ever given me. It is so thirsty right now, but I just watered this 2 days ago. It's just, I think that this is all roots now, and there's not much soil or moss left. So this one is in like a serious need of a repot. But anyway, here are the spider mites. I don't know if you can see it clearly, but just look for like white specks and dots. Those are actual spider mites. I'm not seeing any webbing right now because I just kind of rinsed it off a few days ago. But you can see like on this brand new emergent leaf, first of all, the new leaf is tiny, I think because of this situation. I do want to get it into passive hydro. I'm just a little bit nervous about the transition because alocasia roots are so thin and delicate. I am worried about it not taking well to pon, but I'm gonna try. But this new leaf was not even given the chance, but there's spider mite damage all over it already, and it's not even fully unfurled yet. But you'll notice that this leaf is significantly smaller than the one that came before it, which was this one. But yeah, I think once it's repotted, it'll do a lot better. But pretty much every single leaf has spider mite damage at this point. Once this one is watered, it fluffs up so much. And that's another reason why I want to get this into passive hydro, because of how thirsty it is. This thing loves freaking water. It loves water so much, more water than I can keep up with. And this one is in my XO, so I'm kind of like free spraying in there like every other day, and still it's not enough for this plant. But I'm gonna do a YouTube video on the treatment of this one, repotting. I'm interested to see if there are any corms in here that I can harvest, because I would love to have another scalarum. But this one is like a little taquito. This one's definitely on the way out. You can see spider mites all over this thing too. But yeah, otherwise, it is such a stunning plant. Like, these leaves are just as dark in person as they are in Instagram photos. This one has gotten dangerously close to my grow light, so you can see it's like facing straight up. It's like facing the light. I don't know why this one wants the light so much, but you can see the bleaching around the edges. So I do think that it's gonna be time to get this one out of my XO, and I might try and grow it out on my shelf, which makes me a little nervous, but it is outgrowing the space, and I don't like that the leaves are starting to turn towards the grow lights and burning it. Yeah, like when they emerge and they're kind of given pretty low light, they come out super dark like this. But just like the leaf growth on this thing in general has been so like generous and like robust. And I used to really struggle with alocasias going dormant over the winter, but this thing has not stopped since June. It's just leaf after leaf after leaf. Like, I'm pretty sure once this one like hardens off, there's already gonna be a new one coming. But I need to find that perfect window to repot it while there's no emergent leaf. So anyway, I am happy that this thing it's like 50% happy. It could be happier if it wasn't infested in mites, but I'm gonna do a very, very, very aggressive treatment on this. And I think I've shown on my channel doing an aggressive treatment for scale, but I haven't shown you my aggressive treatment for spider mites, which is almost exactly the same. Yeah, I think that would be kind of interesting to do for a video, just in case people also deal with spider mites as we get closer to the warmer weather. I'm definitely going to have to boost humidity in all of my XOs and out here, because spider mites really, really love dry conditions. So if you can increase humidity a little bit, it does help. But yeah, this is a pretty bad infestation. Oh, I can see a little bit of webbing. But you know what? They all look dead because they're not moving. And I did spray this one with Captain Jack's dead bug spray like 2 days ago, or maybe it was even yesterday. But anyway, I am kind of anxious to get this one cleaned up, so I might film that video today just to get it out of the way. But anyway, yeah, this is what this scalarum looks like. Highly recommend this alocasia if you're looking for an alocasia that's a little bit easier to care for. This has been hands down the easiest alocasia I've ever owned, ever. My recommendation would be to use a more dense soil mix, put it in no drainage, or use passive hydro, like something like leucotricha would be great. Last but certainly not least is my Philodendron gloriosum round form. Yeah, so back in June, this one was a 3-leaf plant. It was still in moss, I believe. It was in a no drainage pot inside of another pot. What a weird freaking ads. Gosh. And ew! Of course, no! You guys, if you guys ever get a gross ad, that was nasty. That was like an earwax thing. Like, you stick it in your ear and you twist it out like a cork, and then it just pulls it. Why did it look like she pulled a slug out of her ear? Why do you have a slug in your ear? That's an ad on my video. No, YouTube, we're gonna have a problem if you are showing my subscribers that nasty. Gross. Oh, I feel gross. I do not do well with stuff like that, like things that come out of the body. No, even blood, no. Call it all off. It's not happening. Anyway, this plant was a 3-leaf plant, and I think that I imported this plant in May of last year, April, May. So I would have had it for almost a year now, I think. The new leaf that emerged, obviously you can see big, round, beautiful, big white veins. Amazing. Just this plant is like Michelin star of gloriosums. It has grown a lot since June. So here's what it looks like now. There's a few things I want to talk about in terms of this plant. Oh, it's so heavy. Here is the gloriosum now. So I don't think any of the original leaves from June are on it anymore, but she is growing so much. Honestly, when I imported this back in whenever I imported it last year, like it was already a really big specimen, but I thought that it was gonna start to revert, or I thought that like I was gonna have to start over because I just haven't had a lot of luck with gloriosums, like really gaining size and kind of making it through the winter. I did have this one growing out on my shelf for a little while last year, and then when I went home for Christmas, I put it in my Redsta just because I was nervous if like there was a pest outbreak while I was gone, or like low humidity. So I like babied it again, and then ever since then it's been a little bit of a drama queen. Now that it's this big, obviously there is no greenhouse that I can fit it into. Like the size of this leaf is just, it's ginormous. So now it's just living out on top of the Redsta, and it lost 2 leaves in the last like week and a half that I've been trying to acclimatize it out. But luckily there is a humongous fruit roll-up coming in. Like the sheer size of this thing is pretty incredible. I feel like it's probably around the same size as what this one was, and this one isn't like as round as like the leaf that came before it, which is this amazing little pillowy guy. I just like how these lobes are just like so perfectly connected, and it's got like that round lily pad shape. Whereas this one kind of resembles more of the like Philodendron gloriosum white vein, but like literally look at it in comparison to the size of my whole torso. It's huge, but definitely has been sort of a drama queen in terms of acclimating it down to low humidity. I don't have a dedicated video on this because I feel like it's gonna be like a 5-minute video, but basically when I acclimate things down out of greenhouses, I literally just stick it next to my humidifier for a few weeks, make sure that I'm very regular with the waterings, and just don't let it completely dry out. But you can see it went through so much stress, and I'm about to show you what that stress looks like. So here's first signs of stress is 2 leaves went out. I am chalking half of it up to the fact that it's pushing out this huge leaf, and then part of it also to stress. In my observation and in my non-educated conclusions that I have made is that plants push out an excess of EFN when they're stressed out. And literally the second that I took it out of that greenhouse, the EFN on this thing was crazy. And you can see sort of the markings that the EFN left on the back. This plant was dripping in sap, you guys. It was all over the petioles. Like there was some like literally even on the pot, like it was sticky to the touch. And you can just see like sort of the burn that it left behind. I'm trying to get a good view. It's very heavy. I'm trying to get you a good view without touching the tripod. I washed it down 2 days ago, but where you see these burn marks, there were huge like droplets of the EFN sap. Yeah, it was just freaking everywhere. I might have a photo of the sap on the petioles that I took one night, and I'll throw it up if I can find it. But otherwise, I feel like over the next few weeks, I might lose another leaf, not due to like a nutrient deficiency or anything, but purely because it's learning to live in 30% humidity. The good thing is that this new leaf was able to make it out of the cataphyll almost unscathed. There's just a tiny little rip here. Because of the low humidity, some of that like film that keeps these things furled up, it doesn't completely like loosen up because it's so dry, which is why people recommend you spray them and stuff so that it kind of loosens it up. So basically it loosened up down here, but it didn't loosen up at the top, and that's where you can see this little rip where it started unfurling down here, but it was still like holding on strong up here, and then it just started to rip itself. So I did help it out a little bit. I'm panting so hard because this thing is really heavy. I want to show you the rhizome because there's such a huge difference in size. I just want to show you the pure size growth of this rhizome, because other than just like the previous leaves, you can really tell if a plant is about to start beefing up just based on how thick your rhizome is getting or how thick your stem is getting. But down here, where we started. So you can see the rhizome down here. It was still a pretty decent size. It was quite thick, but like if you look at how thick the rhizome is up here, like she is thicky. I think that another repot of this is in my future because it is now at the edge of the pot and it has nowhere to go. But luckily I did pick up a rectangular planter for this one. So yeah, it's growing in soil now and it's actually taken to soil well from moss. And as much as I kind of want to try to grow this in passive hydro or in Machuzapan, I do think that it's enjoying soil, so I'm just going to stick with that. I don't want to shock it any more than it already is. Otherwise, I could just stare at this thing all day. Literally, this is like one of the best things I have ever imported. Like, I see these big old like humongous leaves on Instagram, but I just never really thought that I'd be able to have one like grown here by me. So it feels pretty good, honestly. All right, well, that is it for all of the plants. I'm not really sure how you guys are feeling about this style video. I found it pretty refreshing to be able to like look back and see how far plants have come, or like see plants that I've been really struggling with. And I don't know, I feel like it's kind of nice to be able to document and show these things on this channel. So not that there's just like accountability on me, but I'm pretty much taking you along with me in the plant journey. It's not just all about like, oh, look at my new plants and look at how well this is growing, look at this new leaf. Like it's a real like documentation of how things are doing in my care. So if you guys like this style of video where I kind of reminisce and go back on plants that I was either rehabbing or plants that were in my favorites, let me know if you like it, because then I will keep doing it. And if you do like it, then I think the next one I can do is I think it would be October favorites was the next one that I did after the June favorites. Yeah, I can do that. I can keep going back and giving you updates on how those plants are doing. But otherwise, I'm gonna get out of here, but I hope you enjoyed it regardless. If you liked it, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, because it helps Pudge and I's visibility a lot on YouTube, and we would both greatly appreciate it. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. I love you so much, and I will see you in the next one.